All right then. So real quick, we should have done this beforehand. We would like you to check in. Now, the reason why we asked you to check in is because this course is accredited and we actually provide certificates of completion that you can put on your resume, LinkedIn, and everywhere else after at the end, provided you complete all 10 sessions. The reason why we have this here is because not everyone, such as Patty mentioned earlier, can actually stay for the full hour, full 45 minutes, or may not be able to attend every single week. So what we do ask is that, if you're watching back in a recording, please do feel free to still check in. That way we can track your progress. And hopefully we can go from there. Felipe, I love that little run you did with your phone. I love that energy. That's fantastic to see. So yeah, spend a couple of seconds just doing that. Once you've done that, if you can just put a quick thumbs up and we'll go from there. And like I said, there's no pressure on doing this. However, if you want to receive a certificate of completion so that you can actually evidence your new skills that you're going to be learning over the next 10 weeks, fantastic to see. Perfect. Lisa, Tony, great to see. Griffin, wonderful. We'll give it a couple more seconds and then we'll crack on. I'm really excited. This is a brand new course, guys. First time. This is our pilot program. So at the end, feedback is really, really valuable for us. I'm really excited to hear that. Welcome, Les. Welcome, Gail. And so we will crack on. So I assume everyone's sort of had a chance to quickly check in, just brief details, and then we'll run from there. Cool. All right, then. So what is Coding and Codex? You guys saw the name, you guys clicked on the title, but there's not really much about that, about us on the Perks at Work page. Long story short, we are a educational institution and social enterprise based here out of the UK. Our mission is to widen access for everyone when it comes to high quality coding and tech education for all. To date, we were founding about 5 years ago, and we've currently taught around 8,000 people across 58 countries. And so, as you can see, we've done a lot of work with corporates, but also more importantly, and what's very close to my heart is the work that we do with young people. So in the bottom left, you can see some of our youth programs where actually our instructors went into schools and worked with kids who were autistic, and we saw some really great results out of that. So your attendance here means that we can fund programs like this. And so, yeah, pat on the back for turning up, because you guys are contributing something great and really impactful. But moving on, let's get down to the meaty topic, why everyone's turned up today. Oh, sorry, Griffin. Oh, Griffin, yeah. You'll be able to, if someone's just requested to record this, please note that the recording will be published on the website afterwards. So no need to record, just sit back, soak it all in, and you can always watch back afterwards. So what is artificial intelligence? It's this buzzword. Everyone's been talking about it, and it's been going around in the news. As I mentioned, everyone and their grandma's been talking about it. But what is artificial intelligence? And really simply, artificial intelligence, or AI, as we're going to be referring it to as, is when machines learn, think, and do that actions or tasks that typically require human intelligence. So in essence, just think about artificial intelligence is a robotic human, if you really want to put it at its simplest form. So, for example, we've had AI around for years now. I mean, if you've watched 2001 Space Odyssey, or Space Odyssey 2001, you would remember, AI was very much the focal point of said film, but also it sort of exists in our everyday lives, and we even have access to it in our own pockets. So instances such as Siri, Alexa, they use AI, Facebook, most notably TikTok, as its recommendation engine is based on an AI model. So it's everywhere. It's everywhere. But that brings us on to the question of what is generative artificial intelligence? Now, hands up if you've heard generative artificial intelligence and you've heard AI, but you're not really sure what the difference is. If you put a thumbs up, hands up. Yeah, that's completely fine. I had the same panic when I first heard about it, and I run Coding and Codex, which is meant to be a tech educational institution. I sort of sat there Googling for hours, thinking, what is generative AI? And then I realized when you actually look at the word generative, it's actually quite simple. So generative AI refers to a branch of artificial intelligence that generates new content or data that resembles human-generated examples. So that's it. It says generative because it generates data or things or outputs that can be mistaken for human-like. That makes sense? Thumbs up if it does. Thumbs down if it doesn't. Seeing thumbs up. Cool. We'll move on. So how does AI work? So AI is very simply put, a computer program that, as we mentioned, will learn, think, and make human-like decisions. It uses a bunch of data and algorithms to solve problems and improves over time through certain feedback loops and thus getting better and better and better. So we get onto this question: how can you create generative artificial intelligence? And I'll be honest, it's a lot of maths. Well, math, because there's a lot of Americans here, and we're not going to be doing that in this course. Learning how to actually create generative AI is a massive task. And if I'm honest, if you can do that, if that's your interest, this course may not be for you. Instead, we're going to look at how to utilize generative AI in the best way possible that we can weave it into our daily tasks, into our lives to improve productivity and just make life a little bit easier. Because sometimes things can take, a long time. So it's good to use tool sets and kits that actually make us doing everyday tasks a lot faster and a lot easier. So we're not going to be covering that. Instead, we're going to be looking at something called LLMs. Hands up if you've heard of the term large language models before. Yep. And hands up again if you understand what large language models are. Oh, we got a couple people. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Now, I've got a question. Would anyone feel comfortable actually turning off their mic and explaining to the group what a large language model is? No? It's all fine. It's fine. We're just getting to know each other. But watch this. By session 5, we're going to feel really comfortable with each other. And I guarantee someone's going to be able to stick their hand up saying, I'm ready to explain. That's completely fine. So this is a lot of text, and we're going to breeze through this, but we're going to pick up on the main key points in this slide about what large language models are. And in a nutshell, large language models are a type of generative. So remember that generative term is very important here, artificial intelligence. And these LLMs or large language models or LLMs are essentially trained on mass amounts of text data. And notice how we're talking about text in this instance. You can make the connection where we have large language models and then that relation to the fact that it's going to be trained on text base. So large language models refers to any AI models or generative AI models that we interact with through a text-based input. And we'll go more into that more in detail in that in a minute. So LLMs are linked to AI in several ways. So they're trained using AI techniques. They are used to perform AI tasks such as natural language processing. So that, in essence, is when we want to speak to a computer. And the computer, the way it executes or it understands things is in zeros and ones. Hands up if you've heard of the term binary before. Yeah, perfect. So binary is the zeros and ones that a computer will read and understand. Now, we need to somehow convey the complexities that is, well, in this instance, the English language, and distill it in a form which a computer can understand it in a very simplistic zeros and ones. Now, that is a very, very difficult task in of itself. But using something called natural language processing that allows us to take, the complex nuances of speaking and the language that we use every day and actually create it into a process that a computer is able to understand it and thus execute on actions or things that we ask it to do. Make sense? Thumbs up if it does, thumbs down if it doesn't, and please do a thumbs down if you don't understand, because that means I'm not doing my job correctly. Wicked. And so going back to this, I know at the very beginning when everyone was joining, I asked if anyone has utilized any sort of generative AI tools, and people mentioning ChatGPT, Bard, Claude, even Bing search engine. Those are all instances of LLMs. And so it's very important for us to distinguish, okay, so this is what a large language model is. And then something like an image generator, that is generative AI. So that's slightly separate. But we're going to get through that. And by the end of this course, you'll be able to distinguish between the two like that. Moving on. So going to this, got some specific examples. So we have things like chatbots, virtual assistants, code generation. That's been all the hype recently in the past, I'd say at least 12 months in the tech space about the fact that these LLMs are coming in and essentially making software engineers like myself redundant through the fact that they can generate a massive app from one command or one sort of natural language input, and text summarization and also machine translation. So as you can see, it has a vast array of utilization and tools that can be, used for in the industry, in sort of any industry, actually. So now we're going to go on to the two main competitors. So hands up if you've heard of ChatGPT. Yeah, everyone straight away. It's the main, oh wow, loads of people are raising their hands. It's great to see. It's a main large language model that basically brought generative AI to the forefront of public consciousness and really put it on a map. But then hands up it, who's heard of Bard and who knows who created Bard? Does anyone want to say? Mitchell, do you want to come off mute
Sure,
and
yeah. I believe it was it not, is it Google Alphabet?
yep, exactly. Bang on. Yeah, Mitchell was right. Bard is actually Google's competitor to ChatGPT. And I say competitor in a very loose term because you have to appreciate that whilst it might look like all of these LLMs, all these AI tools have just exploded out of nowhere, there has been, if you look at the history of it, there have been mass amounts of resources and time and effort poured in over several number of years, such that it's just happened to be that there's a culmination now where everything's being released at one point. So that's why it seems that there's a new thing coming out every day because years and years of research and effort has been put in to actually create these tools. But let's actually go through sort of the specifics on what makes ChatGPT different to Bard. Because on the surface level, they look like the exact same thing, right? I mean, that's what I thought until I actually came across this slide and I learned something itself. So if you look at the model, and again, what could the model that what could that term type of model be referring to in terms of what we've just covered? So what could that help us distinguish? This is a bit of a tricky question. If anyone takes a guess.
What the model was trained on or trained with?
Yep. Exactly, Mitchell. Exactly what the model was trained on. Because going back to what a large language model is, we spoke about how it's trained, how the techniques it's used to build that quote unquote intelligence, right? So as Mitchell said, it's what it was trained on. So ChatGPT is a generative pre-trained transformer. These are very, this is very specific terminology. You don't need to remember this. This is more just for if you're interested. We're not going to spend too much time on this. We'll keep it moving afterwards. And Bard is a factual language model. So ChatGPT and Bard are both large language models, and they're trained to generate human quality text. They have access to mass amounts of data, which allows them to generate text that is both coherent and informative. However, there are some key differences, as Mitchell pointed out, in terms of how they're trained on, where it really does actually kind of skew the way in which when it comes to using every day, we need to bear in mind. So, for example, the strengths of ChatGPT being a generative pre-trained transformer is that its strength is creating creative text formats. And it's really great, for example, if you ask it to create you a script for The Office, the TV show, and I'm talking about the UK one, not the US one, but we'll delve into that later or another time. It will do that for you, and it's fantastic. But if you take it to Bard, it's not that as creative as ChatGPT in that. We'll leave that for now. However, if you want to find some facts and if you actually want to collect data and do research with relative ease using one of these large language models, Bard is your go-to. Now, this is something I really have to stress in terms of no LLM right now is going to be perfect. So if you're using it for fact finding and research, please ensure that you cross-check, cross-reference all of the information it returns back, because there was actually a legal case where a lawyer decided to use ChatGPT to generate information. Tony, I see your head nodded. You've heard about this. Natalie, I see your head nodding about this. In essence, a lawyer tried to create an argument for a case. They used ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is not the best at finding information, so it made information up. And then that lawyer was held contempt of court or something like that. I'm not a lawyer, but it was something very severe. So if you are going to use it for research, Bard is your go-to here. But at the same time, please cross-reference and go through every single bit of information that it returns to you, particularly if you're going to be using it for your job. But yeah, any questions? Make sense? Thumbs up, thumbs down if it doesn't. I do want to see thumbs down if it doesn't make sense. Cool. Wonderful. Let's move on. Oh, Patricia raised her hand. Patricia, do you have a question?
No, I just raised it to say I understood.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right, then let's move on. So what we need to do is we're gonna have a little task, and you can feel free to get involved. So what's going to happen is that Adam Zaid and Midhat are going to be sharing the links to ChatGPT and Bard. If you already have an account, this is a great way. Just pull it up. And I want you to actually write a prompt to rewrite a modern song of your choice. So I think we should do, what was I listening to earlier? Taylor Swift 22. Mostly because my sister was using my Spotify account and that's the last song she had on there. And so when I hit play, I was very surprised, but I enjoyed it. So if you could open up ChatGPT, and I want you to actually tell ChatGPT, again, leaning into its creative strengths, to convert Taylor Swift 22 into a Shakespeare sonnet. And alternatively, what you can do is navigate to Bard and get it to write you a blog post. In this case, it can be about the top 5 chocolate dessert trends of 2023, or it can be anything. It can be something factual or creative. Choose either one. Once you've got an output, please feel free to put a thumbs up. We'll continue with the session. And if anyone's got any questions, right now is a great time to ask. Yes, Cynthia. Cynthia, do you have a question?
Yeah, it took me a while to find my unmute button.
Well,
Sorry about that.
Fine. No,
Yeah.
no. How can we help?
So I use both fairly frequently, and I've been told that each of them or both of them, especially Bard, have the tendency to save off all the conversation. And do you have any insight on how they, how do they, number one is leaning into the data privacy issue, is that how do they keep the data safe? And of course, the information will be used for retraining the next generation of the chatbot, that I can understand. But how do they actually, let's say, differentiate sensitive data from publicly available data? That's one thing. And also both vendors are from Silicon Valley, from that part of the world, and do they have any difference in terms of positioning themselves in this regard? I hope my question is clear.
No, that's a fantastic question, Cynthia. So just to repeat that back to you so I know I understood it correctly. You're asking what what is the situation around data privacy when it comes to using these sort of tools? And then the second part of it is about how do they distinguish between public and private data? And the third part of it, is there any sort of biases and nuance that we should be aware of when using these tools? Am I correct? Cool.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe just a little bit more on how do they use our probe as the enrich the content to the existing model, so that the next generation of bot are better trained to serve customers, I guess.
Okay. So because of time, I think that last part we'll definitely talk about in further sessions, but 100%, we have our contact details at the end. If you want to send an email, I'm more than happy to sort of talk about that outside of session. And we also have a community group where you can ask that there and definitely apply. I think just in regards to privacy, so we actually have a whole session around this. Being based in here in the UK, we have something that called GDPR, which is General Data Privacy Regulations.
Yeah.
That applies to us. So being GDPR safe is the first is very important to us. The rule of thumb is that you never put personal data into into an LLM. Now, the reason why is because, and answers the second point of your question, Cynthia, is that when you feed something into an LLM, it cannot distinguish between what is private and what is sort of generic and anonymized data. So we always take the state of precaution, and we always ensure that if we're putting information in or for asking it a question, we look at anything that can be deemed as identifiable information and we change that to something that is obscure. So for example, if I'm going to say, please write me a birthday message for my sister who's turning she just turned 24, right? And I don't want it to know, let's say I'm putting in her name and I'm also giving it the age. Well, that's something which could be identifiable information. So I switch those, 24. I could keep that, but I switch her name out. And it's just sort of taking those steps from precautions. We do have a whole session on that, and I really do recommend everyone turns up, everyone does join that. It's really, really valuable, and it's something which Amazon engineers got into a lot of trouble. Has anyone heard about this story about the plight of Amazon and ChatGPT? No. So what happened over at Amazon was that all the engineers started using ChatGPT to write code for them, but they ended up copy and pasting so much of Amazon's core code into ChatGPT. ChatGPT started to learn and understand how Amazon does things such as its ranking and all these other different functionalities, which meant that right now, if you go on ChatGPT and say, write me the code for Amazon to do function X, it will pull it from actually the submitted code from the engineers. So it's been banned at Amazon. So yeah, it's something that can definitely play tricks, so to speak. But yeah, fantastic question, Cynthia. And yeah, you raised a really, really good point there.
Thanks.
Thank you. Looking at this chat, I'm loving some of these sonnets. This is I think Sarah's one, upon the clock's face, 20 and 2 and 20 ring, a maiden dance. Well, I think we need to save some of these and definitely have a read of them after. But this is really, really cool to see. Oh, Swanson's ones are blocked at work. Sorry to hear that, but at the same time, you know, it's one of those things. Hopefully, after this course, you'll be able to turn around to the IT administrators, explain the pros, talk about the negatives and how you can mitigate that, and we get it unblocked. So, fingers crossed for that. All right, let's move on. So, something which a lot of people have actually messaged me about recently is this whole new concept about GPT Store. Has anyone heard of this in the news and sort of just heard the buzzword? Thumbs up if you have, thumbs down if you haven't. Okay, cool. So Adam Zay just sent a blog post. We do recommend you read it so you sort of understand what's going on in this ecosystem, because a lot of times when tech moves forward, it can be really valuable, but a lot of times you need to position it and figure out how it's going to benefit you in this situation. But we're going to go through some instances here. But as we know that the large language model is trained on a vast amount of data. And so ChatGPT is a large language model and so serves a very generic purpose. Now, what these custom GPTs do is that it allows you to add further context and information around, let's say, a specific topic. So in this case, we have, as you can see here, we have a creative writing coach. So what someone's done is they've taken ChatGPT, put it in a little box and fed it even more specific information about how it can answer or how it can give better tips about creative writing and actually mimic the acts of a creative writing coach. And now you can go online, and if you have an account, again, whether you choose to get a premium service or not, it's completely up to you. The the basic the version is still very, very good. And so we recommend using that for a while before you decide to take that financial investment. But that's completely up to you. But you can actually then access a specifically trained and fine-tuned version of ChatGPT that will serve a purpose. So in this case, for the top one, we have creative writing coach. Below we have a tech advisor, sticker whiz if you wanted to create stickers, but we'll get onto image generation in a minute. But does that make sense? Do you now have a brief understanding of what custom ChatGPTs are? Yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down if you don't. Seeing thumbs up, wonderful, wonderful. All right then. So we're actually going to look through some resources that we can take very, very much from the jump. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at this awesome list of ChatGPT prompts. Now, the whole act of writing a prompt is something that we have a whole session on. That's the next session. And that is a skill in of itself. If you go online, you can find jobs for AI prompt engineers. It's created a whole new industry, and it can be very nuanced, and it's a technical skill in of itself. We cover that next week. But if you guys want to get started, as Adam Zay just shared, there's a list of prompts that you can use for certain tasks that you may already have. So if we scroll down here, let's say, these are all tech. What's a good one? What's a good one? Shout if you see anything interesting that you want to have a read through as a group. I'm just going to scroll down. Actually, you know what? Here's a good one. Act as a character from any travel guide. That's a great one, Aaron. So act as a travel guide. This is already this will give you an example of how you can actually get ChatGPT to plan your holiday. And let's say, so my older sister, she went to Ireland a couple months ago, and she turned around to me and goes, "Oh, do you have any recommendations?" I turned around to her and said, "I've never been to Ireland in my life. I don't know why you're asking me." And instead of being annoying younger brother, I actually decided to open up ChatGPT and give her a whole itinerary. I said, act as a travel guide and give me an itinerary going from, I believe it was Dublin to Cork and then some other places as such. Sent it back to her, and well, yeah, she bought me a free meal. So we won't tell her that I used ChatGPT in that instance, but it was great. And it's a really good tool to have. And we will actually look in a minute how you can leverage these certain prompts with things called plugins that will actually, you know, make our lives even more easier. So I really do recommend spending about 5 minutes after this session, just reading through these prompts. It's a great list. It's a great thing to have in your back pocket. It's very long and it's quite unwieldy, but over time you will see the similarities between different prompts, how they're crafted, and how you can then use that and implement it into your work or even just everyday life. Make sense? Thumbs up if it is, thumbs down if it doesn't. Wicked. Maureen, acts as an advertiser, looks good for exactly. Maureen, you're completely right there. Has some really good stuff in there. So we're now going to look at something called ChatGPT plugins. So we'll go more into this in detail, but really simply going off that point of getting ChatGPT to be act as a travel guide, this is something that I did beforehand. So I used the plugin, which is only accessible on the premium version of ChatGPT. I just want to make that very clear. Again, if you want to make that investment, we recommend using the free service first before you take that financial investment, because it does cost around $20 a month. So please do make that judgment based on your needs and requirements. And if you can get it financed through work, make sure they're paying for it. And so, as you can see here, I said, find me a flight on the 12th of January to Paris and plan me a 3-day itinerary. It said, yeah, but where are you flying from, mate? And I thought, oh, yeah, that's a really good point. I haven't told ChatGPT where I am in the world. So I put down London, and using Expedia, which is obviously the popular travel platform, it actually provided me some flight details and then provided me some itineraries, and it allows me to book the flight very much from the get-go. So if I was to click that, I just click that here. It then takes me to Expedia and I can actually then book said flight, which is fantastic. Saves me about, what, half an hour searching and gives you some options. I don't know why it's in dollars though. I'm paying pounds and I think that conversion rate may be a bit messed up. But yeah, so that's what the plugins are. And my favorite one is image generation. So this came out a while back, and this is something that's really fun and really useful actually if you do have to make certain graphics and whatnot. So we're going to go through, has anyone got any suggestions of an image that we'd like the AI model to create? You can pop it in the chat, you can come off mute. If not, I've got a really fun one on my sleeve. An image should go with a sonnet. Okay, so create, I like that. Oh, what we just created. Adam Zaid Midhat, could you make sure you share the link for this so that everyone can actually use this on time? I think we've got a lot of enthusiasm for this, which is really cool to see. So, try a portrait of a hippo paying. What's a harpsichord? Oh, never heard of that. Okay, but let's do that. So a hippo playing a harpsichord. I think that's an instrument. As a Picasso painting. I believe that's something. It does take a little while, but thumbs up if you think it's going to be good. Thumbs up if you think it's going to be okay. Thumbs down. Well, how do we do? What do we think, guys? Do you think that's as a Picasso painting? Could that be something which you could see in the gallery? Could I walk into London Tate art gallery and see that on the wall? You know what? Definitely this one. I think this one really speaks to me and speaks to my soul. But as you can see there, we've managed to generate an image in what, 30 seconds? And so using this for tools, for example, when it comes to presentations is very helpful. And it's something which I recommend everyone sort of do. Because yes, you can browse through stock imagery, but sometimes if you need a simple graphic, it's great just to pop in here, quick 30-second job, and you've got some options to play with. Any questions around that? No? Wonderful. We'll keep going on. So we've got about 15 minutes left. So given the time frame, guys, there's something really cool afterwards from Amazon service. We're going to skip over this, but as mentioned before, we will be posting these slides and also links to everything that we shared here in our community group on our website afterwards. More information on that in the end, and we'll go through that. And if you've checked in at the beginning, we'll be sending you an email with everything in there. So we're going to look at something called custom. So we spoke about the custom GPTs and GPT plugins. Now, this is a lot of information. You don't need to memorize everything. There's just some really key points of information here that we need to go through. And yeah, it should help basically, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. It should help you distinguish between the two fairly easily, and you know what's what and what's not. So custom GPTs, as we mentioned, is when someone gets essentially a large language model and then applies some fine tuning to it and basically creates a specialist. So before we saw that you can have a custom GPT that is a creative coach, creative writing coach. And as we can see, someone's taken ChatGPT and it's created a specialization for it. Now, GPT plugin is when we have our large language model and we link it with a service. So we then connect it to a third-party service. So if we go back to this instance here, as we can see, Expedia have created something that links up to our ChatGPT instance, our large language model, and actually says, hey, listen, if at any point someone asks you to find some flight options or some travel options, please actually search our website and then send them back, you know, some actual flights that they can access in one click, which is, you know, pretty impressive. But if we actually want to look underneath the hood, which we can, it's a lot of code, and it's something that's quite unwieldy. This isn't very user-friendly, so to speak. And even as a programmer myself, I mean, I can understand what this means, but it's something which is it's something which requires quite a bit of speciality in doing. So I think everyone here is capable of creating a custom GPT, because that is just where we're feeding our own specialist knowledge, which everyone here is a specialist in something, into an instance of a large language model, a chat GPT. But if you want to create a plugin, that's going to be a bit harder, and you'll typically require a team of developers. And so just keep that in mind. Everyone understand the difference between a custom GPT and a plugin? Yeah, thumbs up if you do, thumbs down if you don't. Thumbs down is very important. It means I'm not doing my job. Middle, anyone like, yeah, I kind of get it. I don't, yeah, that's fine. That's completely fine. Throwing a lot of information at you guys, but you guys are doing fantastic. As mentioned, recording will be up on the website. We will be sharing this in our group on site, and you guys can ask us questions after the session. So if we move on, again, this is going back to sort of the custom GPT and GPT plugin. If you want, you can take a screenshot of this. But at the same time, it's what we've mentioned. It's sort of going over again. Custom GPT is kind of just changing the appearance of a typical large language model. GPT plugin is when you give it superpowers and you actually give it more functionality past it to being just a text-based interface. Bit clearer? Yeah? No? It's fine if it's not. Okay, let's move on. We've got about 15 minutes left. Thank you, Aaron. So this is one of my favorite tools that has come out in recent history. Recent history? It sounds as if it's been around for like 20 years. It's been around for like 6 months, but in recent times. And that is Amazon's Party Rock service. Now, what Amazon's Party Rock service allows us to do is, from single lines, I'm going to see this in a minute, we can actually create artificial to AI apps. And so it's something which you know, is really useful, and we'll go into it in a second. So Adam Zaid has just shared the link to Party Rock AWS. If you want to spend a minute just logging in, you can create an account. You don't have to create an account, but it's something that I recommend just having open. So after this session, I believe it's lunchtime for a lot of you guys in America. So if you've got 10 minutes, definitely do that. Or for everyone calling from this side of the pond after work, definitely play around with it. But yeah, let's have a quick look at Party Rock. Oh, okay. So as we can, oh gosh, that's changed. So as we can see here, it allows us to build our own app. And so someone here, can everyone see what my cursor is hovering over? Everyone can read it quite clearly. I'll just zoom in just so that people can read it. Oh, So someone has asked the app builder, generate a 575 syllable haiku poem and a visual image based on its user input. And we can see here that there's a screenshot of essentially a very rudimentary app that will take a user input, generated a haiku, and it's given an image. But we want to test this for ourselves, right? So let's say, for example, we want to create an app. Now, Coding and Codex, one thing we really pride ourselves on with our youth programs is that we are ASC friendly, meaning that we ensure that even if someone is neurodiverse, we can still teach them. And so a main teaching principle that we have here at Codex is that all of our content has to be created that it can be taught to a 9-year-old with autism. So let's say I want to create an app that will do this for us. So create me an app that will allow me to explain concepts to a 9-year-old with autism and provide a visual aid. Now, can anyone see any potential problems that could arise from what I've written here? There's a slight issue that AI may... Exactly, Aaron, spelling. So the beautiful thing about artificial intelligence is that it's just that. It's very intelligent. And so you can typically, if we say for aid, if we do ADI, it'll be able to actually correct that and put the word into the context of the sentence and say, oh, visual AD? No, it's going to be visual aid. So here, we switch this back to aid. Now, something to bear in mind, when you teach, when you interact with individuals with autism or ASC and part of that community, you have to be very literal. And you can't use things such as similes, metaphors, and you can't use the word like. So that's something which we want to really look for. Now, it does take a couple minutes to generate. And in the interest of time, and something called Blue Peter that we have over here, or Art Attack, or Bob Ross, here's one I made earlier before this session. And so in essence, we can see that it's generated an app that will explain concepts in a way that is easy for a 9-year-old with ASC. ASC stands for autistic spectrum condition, to understand. So can someone give me a concept that you think that no 9-year-old will be able to understand? And we can test this out. Photosynthesis. Farha, that is something which I don't understand because I did not do biology at school. I managed to weasel my way out of it. So I think I'm going to learn quite a bit in here. So here's what it's given us. So plants use a process called photosynthesis to make their food that uses sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to make sugars. As we can see, it seems to be quite good. It's very clear. In terms of me marking this rubric, in terms of whether it's fit to explain to someone who is ASC, it's pretty solid. But let's actually test the boundaries of this. So Laura mentioned compound interest. Now this even confuses me at my age of 25. So I think it's going to be very beneficial for everyone. So compound interest, as we can see, it is generating, and I'd be interested to see any aids that it generates. So we know that it can't actually always generate a visual aid for us. That's something that is a limitation. However, as we can see, we've got this example of compound interest is when you earn interest on your interest. We can see here it's failed slightly. It's used the term like. It shouldn't do that. But it's like when you plant a seed and it grows into a plant, then that plant makes new seeds and it can new seeds that can be planted to grow more plants. Kind of makes sense, but then it gives an example there. So as you can see, this quote-unquote app has been generated from one singular line, and it's a fantastic resource to have and something that I do really recommend you guys play around with when you have time. And, you can make things such as movie recommendations, recipe generators, restaurant finders, and it's a great way to actually understand what the potential of AI can do in regards to automating tasks and just making your life that much easier. Any questions before we move forward? Anything burning on anyone's mind? Does the app save? Yes, Megan. The app does save. So in essence, you will create an account when you go to Party Rock, and then it will save all the different sort of apps that you have. Perfect. How do we know what to believe? Patricia, what do you mean by that?
Well, as we saw, it was capable of creating cases, legal cases that didn't exist.
Mhm.
And so you have to check everything. So if you have to check everything, you could do it yourself to start with?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, actually. Something there that we need to consider is, what do we use AI for? And this is a great question to pose to yourself when actually looking at these tools. So obviously in the realm of research, it's something which, if you're looking for quantitative and objective data, for example, how many milliliters of rain fell last year here in London? And you could Google that, you could read some documents. However, given the fact that we know that BARD is linked to the internet and is very factual, given the type of model it was trained on, we know that we can safely assume that it will return us the right information. Now, if you want to take that step of due diligence and cross-examine that with what we find in Google, that's completely up to us. But when it comes to more nuanced topics, such as, as mentioned earlier, the legal proceedings or things that move out the realm of objective data, that's where I really recommend, you try and stay away from it. It can aid in certain aspects of it, but you really shouldn't have we really shouldn't have a strong reliance on AI. And this is something which a lot of people are now facing in their day jobs, because they're making, 100% they're relying 100% on things like ChatGPT, and it's causing them to provide incorrect information. And so it's really taking that sort of stock and providing that personal analysis of, am I searching objective data, or am I searching subjective data that could be skewed by biases or has a potential to make something up? And yeah, I hope that answers your question. And yeah, we'll move on. Cool. So we have 4 minutes left. And so I want to give you guys a quick sneak preview into what's coming up in the later session, because AI is something which is very much a case of, well, it's this massive industry. There's so many different tools, but what are we actually going to learn in this course? So obviously next session, we're going to be looking at crafting effective prompts. We will also be introducing you guys to the superpower that it has in spreadsheets. So I know a lot of people in their day jobs use Excel, Google Sheets, but there's actually a way you can link tools like ChatGPT, Bard to actually do a lot of the heavy lifting for you and saves quite a bit of time. We'll be looking at how you can automate the mundane tasks in your life. And then in addition, how you can actually use it to learn new skills. So for example, that's one of our final lessons where we actually see how ChatGPT can teach you a whole new language. I've been using it recently to learn French. My French is terrible, so please don't test me on that. And but it's doing the job of telling me when I'm getting things wrong. And so even how it can be a coding companion. So we know that, as mentioned earlier, a lot of developers are quite scared about the potentials which ChatGPT can bring. Though it can't create you a whole new application or the next Facebook, it can provide you with certain programs that make your life a lot easier and do a lot of the heavy lifting. So that's something we've got to look forward to. And again, this is something which we'll be covering in later sessions. So integrating ChatGPT with Google Sheets. And as you can see, we can actually put a prompt straight into our Google Sheets, which is pretty cool. And you can do a lot of pretty cool data analysis there. And so, yeah, these are these. Cool. So we're going to wrap up here. Again, going through this, we've gone through the AI fundamentals, or what the difference between AI and generative AI is. We looked at large language models. We've understood the differences between ChatGPT and Bard. Can anyone can remind the group what the difference is between them, and what ChatGPT is good at and what Bard is better at? Does anyone want to volunteer? Oh, yeah, Dee, do you want to unmute and explain to the group?
Yeah, for me, and I believe we had the same understanding. So what I utilize is for ChatGPT is for like cleaning up all the research that I accumulated from utilizing Bard. So Bard is more so for research purposes, and ChatGPT, I utilize that information. I clean it up so that it's more presentable.
Exactly, perfect. Bard is great for fact finding, and though not perfect, it's better than ChatGPT. But ChatGPT for creative presentation, for actually taking vast amount of text and just adding that little bit of pizzazz to it. So that's something we've got to keep in mind. And then we've looked at how we can actually create from the jump our very own AI apps, which is going to be great. And also looking at what we're going to be covering in future sessions. So congratulations, guys. You guys are the first cohort of individuals who've gone through our Generative AI program and kicked it off with us. We're really excited that you guys have signed on and going to be joining us over the next 10 weeks. And so, yeah, well done. So pat on your back, round of applause, because this is not easy. A lot of people tend to drop off within 5 minutes of sort of these sessions. but it's really cool to see. Something that's going to be in here, we have a generative AI group. So as mentioned, all the links, all the slides, any questions you may have around sort of what we're going to be doing over the next 10 weeks. But also if you have any questions around how you can implement certain sort of prompts to fulfill certain tasks and whatnot. Alternatively, if you want to share any resources, because bear in mind, guys, this is a community. Hopefully, we're going to be learning together as we continue through this journey, and we'll be learning from one another and going through that. And so link is going to be in the chat and also emailed out. There we go. Adam's just popped it in. If you want to join in, that'd be great. If you have any questions, but don't feel that you know, you want to actually put it in a group, that's completely fine. This is the email. I will answer it there. To remind you guys, my name is Faisal or Faz. I'm the CEO of Codex, Coding with Codex, and you know, I've got 5 years as a software engineer. I decided to go back to teaching because that's something that I really want to do and I'm very passionate about. And also, this is sort of admin stuff. Leave us a review, ain't got to leave it, doesn't really matter, but it does help us. But particularly if you want to see any more improvements, that's something which, you know, we're constantly here. If you have any thumbs down that you felt you didn't want to mention in front of the group, you didn't want to put in the chat, please do put it in the feedback app. It's all anonymized and allows us to understand how we can, you know, how we can improve. But yeah, this is where I want to sort of open it up to questions, feedback, thoughts about the course, about what we've covered, and sort of anything else related to tech and ChatGPT. So yeah. Dave said, how do we join the other sessions? Same Zoom link. Dave, what will happen is that next week you'll be given, I believe it's from tomorrow, you'll be given the option to sign on to the next session. So you can just click that, jump on, and then yeah, you'll be enrolled as the sessions go on. And so yeah, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to raise your hand or just come off mute and we can have a chat. Tony, thank you very much for joining us and hope to see you next week as well.
Will it be same day, same time?
Same day, same time, D.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Quick question for you though, then, since I do apologize, everybody. Have you created any side projects for yourself to get better I would say understanding of how to utilize the AI? Like, so me first, I'm more on the business side in my profession, but I'm looking to transition into the tech side. So I'm looking at AI as like, so I know like when computers technology first came out, like my mom's and them was scared of it, so a lot of them got outsourced out of their positions. So I'm looking at AI as to be the next thing to come about for the generation after me. So I'm trying to embrace it to be ahead of the curve. So when it does become, this is the opportunity, I'm prepared and ready for it, not the person that's trying to go to school and get caught up for it. So I'm trying to look for ways to create side projects to have a better understanding and things like that. But my whole thing is that I don't come from a technology background. I'm just tech savvy. Like how to have a destination to steer a path, a clear path. So that way I'm not just taking in a lot of information that's frivolous, just without a path. So is there like any resources you can share in regards to that? And or are you working on any projects to helping you better understand?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question, D. It can be really quote unquote intimidating when you look at a tool like this. I'll just move back to the link if anyone wants to, or here if anyone wants to get in contact after the session and we may not have time. But I think when it comes to getting better at something like this, particularly coming from a non-technical background, I can't explicitly give advice in regards to that because I do have a degree in computer science, a bachelor's. So that's something that I want to be hyper aware of and call out that sort of nuance. But one thing I can suggest is really trying to distill and get better at utilizing AI to help you with the small stuff. And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, you know, as someone who's involved in business like yourself, for me, when it comes to writing emails, I've been able to hone down the skill of writing a prompt. So obviously what we input into a LLM by taking a email, writing it how I normally write, and then going to ChatGPT and saying, please write me an email that does X, Y, and Z as a means to try and mirror what I spent, let's say, like half an hour writing myself. And if it doesn't generate that the first time round, then I know that, okay, so my prompt was slightly incorrect and I need to tweak it. I need to improve on that such that it actually generates the output that I am looking for. And so therefore that's going to be not an issue, but that's going to be to do with my input and my prompt writing. And then in terms of looking at this in sort of a wider lens, it's quite difficult to say about where one can go to sort of gain a holistic overview of AI in general and sort of keep up with the times. I mean, shameless plug, if you want to join our group, we're always here posting about sort of updates, and this is something which you'll be interacting with actual tutors and computer science experts and programmers, people from Amazon, Meta, and whatnot. But at the same time, it's something which you really do get to create your feed. So using things like Twitter, using things like X, keeping on top of platforms such as TechCrunch. But at the same time, you don't need to learn everything. Typically, what will happen is that over time, as you go through this journey, you will find about 2 or 3 tools that will really benefit you in your specific day-to-day tasks, and you won't really need to deviate from there. Similar to how people use Google because that works for them. But I know so many people that use, or Google Chrome, but I know so many people that use browsers such as Firefox, Safari, because everyone has their own sort of reason for why they use it and it works for them. Given the fact that I believe we're one of the very few courses that are out there for professionals like yourselves, to actually say, hey, this is what we recommend as coming from an authoritative place. But at the same time, please do look up other people and other sort of thought leaders in this space. So not that many, so they're quite easy to find. But looking on places like LinkedIn for seminars, looking on places for like Eventbrite and platforms such like that. I'm really sort of understanding through podcasts and that sort of stuff. But if you don't want to do that, just pick one tool and just focus on the small stuff. And that's how you can get better and better and better. And trying to replicate what you've produced by yourself after sitting there for about half an hour, and try and get to replicate that by using ChatGPT and sort of getting better at your prompts. And that's how you can almost define your process of improvement. That's how you can almost gauge how are you getting better at using AI. And also another one, if it's making your life quicker, making your life easier, you're getting better at it. It's very simple, straightforward like that. I hope that's answered your question. As mentioned, you can drop us an email, join the group, let us know about it. But yeah, I hope that's made sense. Griffin, you had a point about the ethical usage. Do you mind just coming off mute, Griffin, and just sort of explain it to the group? Or I'm happy to read out for you.
Hi, thank you very much. This has been a great course. A lot of institutions are now grappling with the issues related to responsible usage of artificial intelligence, particularly, educational units such as admissions committees and so forth. And one of the matters that we're facing right now is first, is the use that is what we see with AI usage, is that ethical? Is it responsible usage? How do we monitor that, and how do we form policy that's going to safeguard appropriate usage? I think a lot of us are in a situation right now where we're really having to deal quickly with these questions, and it's going to have really big implications going forward as to what is legitimate when someone's writing a document or a paper or completing an exam or whatever, or even applying for an institution. So,
I think it's a really
that might be a module in and of itself. So,
yeah.
sorry.
No, by all means, by all means. By the way, guys, just a note, if you do have to drop off, please do feel free to leave. But if you can stay in and also contribute to this chat, it'd be great. So, Griffin, to your point, actually, this is where I get to low-key flex. I was actually invited down to the Houses of Parliament about 4 months ago, to sit on a conversation about this with a few experts in the field. And this is something that is bewildering everyone. Bear in mind, I was sat with top politicians and experts from Oxford, some of the best startup, University College London, and some really big companies. I think the CEO of Deloitte was there, but I don't know, I can't remember. But in essence, everyone had this question, and it's something which, because it's such a novel and new technology, it will take some time for us to acclimatize to this. And in regards to actually creating policy that is dynamic is something that but I mean, that in itself sounds almost paradoxical, right? writing policy that is dynamic, and they almost clash heads, right? Because you want to write policy that is fixed for a certain amount of time, you don't have to revisit, but safeguards enough different aspects such that you catch all the edge cases or situations that could arise. So, for example, as Patricia just mentioned, yeah, plagiarism can be a massive issue when it comes to answering exam questions and stuff like that. I mean, how do we safeguard against that? I think it's something which over time the answers will appear, because typically the ones who will know it best are the young people who are currently in education and utilizing it on a day-to-day basis. I mean, the same way in which people looked at search engines when they first came out, or if you want to go back, even the written language, where people were saying it's an abomination to what's it called? To take, for example, the refrigerator and call it a fridge and stuff like that. And it's always that whenever we see mass changes and technology come in that severely disrupt sort of our current ways of thinking, ways of working, and the way we act, it does take time to acclimatize. But it's something we're actually engaging with a few policy groups here in the UK to sort of talk about it. Griffin, if you want to drop me an email, I'm more than happy to speak to you about this separately, and we can definitely work together to share our point of view. But something that I do think is important to note is that I was reading an article from a report from Deloitte that's saying that it could potentially automate around 330 million jobs. I think that's by 2030, something like that. So one thing that will be a problem that can occur is by actually preventing people from learning how to use it in a safe and appropriate, ethical manner, such that people can leverage these tools that are helpful at times, are helpful in general. And I think it's really important for us to place a focus on education and get ahead of the curve. I was speaking to someone from University of Edinburgh 2 days ago, and he was saying very similar things in terms of there's mass hype around it, but at the same time, we need to sort of take this communal commitment that we're all going to educate ourselves in that as such.